Hey everybody, Dan at Ready Edge Go with another Go Live with you today. Happy holidays. I hope everyone is safe and about to enjoy or are enjoying a winter break. It is official. COVID vaccine is on its way. Winter break is here. You're probably going to get a whole bunch of stuff from Amazon. I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Probably going to get some snow hiking in, but anyway. Today we're going to talk about, well, I guess it's a early Christmas or New Year gift. It's, actually good information. How about that? Save you some stress. Today we're going to talk about the $1 billion question, right? Which is what really makes you stand out as a candidate. And this is the $1 billion question because the $1 million question is what do colleges even look for? But I have found from my workings with people and students and parents for all these years that what everyone really wants to know is how to differentiate themselves. So anyway, if you like this channel, if you want to support our stuff, definitely drop a like, a subscribe, share this content with anybody you feel like who would benefit from this. Would really appreciate it. So let's get into it. Before I dive into the factors of what makes you different or stand out from everybody, I think let's first understand the paradigm, right? We are going through I guess you can say a cultural paradigm shift. And we have a lot of parents, for instance, who come from other countries that studied in India, China, anywhere else in the world. And they come here and they want the best for their kids. And so they teach their kids everything they know without fully understanding the system though, right? So hence what helped them set themselves apart was usually one really good test score, right? Or really high marks. And then they come over here and that's generally speaking what they have a bias towards. And it's not anyone's fault, right? Parents love their kids. This is what they know, and hence they give it to them. But unfortunately, comparing the United States college admission system with, let's say, the rest of the world is almost like comparing, a mammal with plants, right? It's just very, very different. And I think, it's all based on this thing called the holistic review process, which, in case you didn't know, is a thing, right? Where they take numbers that becomes like a prerequisite and then they look at all these quality attributes. The problem is right now is no one knows what those quality attributes are, which is what Ready Edge Go is trying to solve. We're trying to make that so much more transparent so that there are no more questions. You know what they're looking for. So if you do have any questions about that, please reach out to us and we will show you exactly how college admissions works. Now then, let's go ahead and talk about what sets you apart. I'm going to start with what I call your tier 2, tier 3, and all other tier schools, right? So when you think about UC Davis, UC Irvine, Santa Barbara, Fordham, CU Boulder, UW Seattle, UT Austin, Michigan, these are all good schools. These are top, 30 to 100, right? Very good schools. So I'm going to start with what makes you set up with what helps you stand out for those schools. And then I'm going to reserve the second part of today to talk about what helps you stand out for the tier 0, tier 1 schools like the Stanfords, the Berkeleys, the LAs of the world, right? Because it is different, right? Standing out for a UT Austin is different from standing out, let's say, for a Harvard, right? But it's really important to understand because the dichotomy here, because I think we get it mixed up. We think, oh, how do I stand out for one is how do I stand out for all of them? And so I'm going to go through very useful information for anybody who's looking to go to college and trying to fully understand the system. I will not be talking about grades or test scores today because number one, that does not make you stand out from anybody else, right? So I'm going to start with one simple number, and that is 400. It has been widely published that Stanford rejects 400 perfect GPA and SAT scores every year, and that's probably at minimum. I would argue that's probably the same number because those applicants are probably, applying to all these other Ivy League-esque kind of schools. And probably also you'll see the same numbers at Princeton, at Harvard, at Columbia, at Dartmouth. So perfect numbers don't make you stand out. They just demonstrate that you're strong in aptitude, but they don't make you stand out because there are simply too many of them. Okay. So what does? I'm going to start with the first 3. I'm going to call them out. I'm going to define them. So this is for most of your schools, what I call 99% of all universities. This will be enough, okay? And then I'll cover the 1% later. For 99% of universities, maybe even more, like 99.5% of universities, right? It's 1, All right, the first one has to be intellectual depth outside the classroom, right? Recently, I read about, or this post on Quora by a current Harvard student talking about answering this question about, oh, like, what are the extracurriculars that are good enough to look good for Harvard? And the student answered in a very genuine, sound way, right? The student said, well, it's because if you're going to tout your extracurricular activities, that's going to get you rejected. If you're going to tout your achievements, that's what's going to get you rejected. Because what Harvard looks for is what he said, genuine interest. And so I want to echo that point. Intellectual curiosity outside the class. This does not matter how many APs you take. This does not include what APs you're self-studying for, what subject exams you're taking. Guys, all that stuff is in numbers, right? So one thing that you can do to really kind of help yourself set yourself apart is, how can I genuinely explore my interests, right? One, pertaining to my major. That's a good one to start with, but also maybe a little bit elsewhere. But let's start with the major, right? How concretely, does one actually intellectually explore an interest outside of class? Well, let's start with this. How about reading, right? Yeah, I said reading. And in case you don't believe me, how is that so powerful? Well, first of all, how many students actually read a lot nowadays? To be honest, not a whole lot. Everyone's usually playing video games or, computer games, or on their Snapchat or TikToks or whatever. No one's really reading anymore. So just by reading, that sets you apart, okay? Why does that matter? Well, how about this? When you sit in an interview or a call or a video call with a Brown rep or a Penn admissions representative, and you can talk about intelligently the subject that you're interested in and what you read about it, yeah, that will set you apart from all these other students who are bragging about what club they started, right? So if you're genuinely interested, you should probably read, right? Sure, watch videos about it, right? Write about it, right? Starting blogs on maybe your findings is a great way to kind of accumulate knowledge and findings. And yeah, sure, maybe taking some summer programs or, classes in addition. Now, I will warn you, right? Taking summer programs and classes, if you're doing that to look good for college, right? That doesn't make you any different from all the other kids who are doing the same exact thing. So I get this question a lot. Dan, what, programs can I sign up for to really set me apart? Well, that one research internship at Stanford set me apart, or, well, doing Cosmos at UC Davis set me apart. And the answer is definitive no. If you're relying on, these $5,000-$6,000 programs to set you apart, you're completely mistaken, because thousands of other students are doing the same things. And how does that objectively mean that you're doing anything differently, right? If anything, that's part of the story, right? It's part of intellectual curiosity. Spending 2-3 weeks in the summer or 4 doesn't validate your intellectual curiosity, right? So by going in depth into a subject, guys, outside of class, it really means being genuine about it. You'll read about it, you'll do about it, you'll take the classes that you want to about it, you'll continue to learn. And by the time you get to college applications, you'll be able to actually talk about the details of what actually inspires you in terms of the topic, as opposed to saying, oh, I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? It should be, I actually find A really interesting. And you're going to stay on A, just that one topic, and you're going to tell us why that's so significant, what you've done to really explore that in great detail, referencing authors, referencing researchers, articles, books, videos, whatever, right? And in case you guys are curious, that will likely also lead to great opportunities that most students can't get. Like, how about actual research opportunities, ones you don't have to pay for? Let's start with that, okay? I find it funny that people say, oh, how do I get an internship? And they'll pay XYZ thousands of dollars for an internship. But guys, a real internship should be paying you, okay? And the only way to get those, generally speaking, is if you're genuinely interested in that thing. So make a genuine interest, right, in going out and developing depth in, let's say, towards your major. That's one thing that would definitely help you for 99% of universities. The next one is leadership, okay? And this one is also really, really misunderstood, but I'll just start by saying this. Starting an AI club or starting a club, just to say you started a club, is not an example of leadership, okay? Let me clearly define what leadership is. Leadership is convincing someone else to do something that they otherwise would not have. Convincing someone else to do something that they otherwise would not have done. So let's say you were to start an AI club for the sake of being president. And maybe you invite your other friends and they say, oh yeah, sure, I'll be secretary, right? For the sake of starting a club, right? And then you invite, I don't know, people to join your club stating you have some kind of mission, right? If it was really predicated on you wanting to look good for college, right? Are you really convincing other people to do something that they otherwise wouldn't have done? I just don't believe it, right? And so when colleges read that actually arguably hurts you, because they see that as an ingenuine, it's not genuine, right? It's a non-genuine act of trying to bolster your resume, or as a student told me what it's called nowadays is resume packing, right? It's pretty clear. It's so easy to tell when if there's like 4 AI clubs at a high school, like what's going on here, guys, right? We're not stupid, okay? College admissions readers are not, we understand the game. We see what's going on. So how does actual leadership work? Well, again, the definition, convincing other people to do something that they otherwise would not have done, right? Whether that's, supporting a cause for the wildflowers here in California or in Australia, right? Whether that's convincing group members who don't want to cooperate, whether it's convincing 2 friends who are fighting to stop fighting, right? These small examples actually are the ones that mean a whole lot more than I was president of a club, right? Or I was secretary of my class, right? Those titles literally mean nothing, because at the end of the day, you will have to write an entire essay about an experience, a leadership experience. That's UCP IQ number 1, in case you want to look it up, okay? And if all you have to reference is like an event you coordinated, or let's say a title you held, good luck. You're not going to stand out from every other student who had to coordinate the same event from last year and held the same position as you from this year and last year and every other year I've ever read, okay? So make an impact. And that's a good segue into the third thing, is service. Stop counting the number of hours, right? You need to really, really make sure that you're serving for the sake of serving. Again, titles don't mean anything. And here's a tip, guys. Don't serve 6 or 7 different ways. How about this? Find 1 or 2 ways that genuinely interest you, meaning the people that you're helping or the way that you're helping genuinely interests you, and do that. And do that well. Do that well to the point where, who knows, you might be promoted to a leader or a manager, right? Overseeing other volunteers. You might maybe expand it out to help more and more kids, right? If that's what you're working with, right? But do 1 or 2 things really well. I'd rather see that than, some student who's doing like 15 different volunteer service opportunities, right? And so it's not about the title. I think similar to leadership, service is all about the impact, right? You want to make sure you focus on really kind of, staying with it, right? And again, being genuine, right? It should be meaningful for you. Stop serving to serve yourself. Like I said, you want to stand out, stop counting hours and stop serving to serve yourself, because that's what I see way too much of. So 2021 New Year's resolution, see things differently. I hope everyone here sees things differently, because now I'm about to dive into the top 1%. What do the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Dartmouths, the MITs, the Caltechs really look for? Right? What is the top 1%? You know what's funny is in the United States, there's roughly 4,000 colleges, right? The top 1%, well, that's 400. Technically, right now, we're talking about the top, call it 15, 20 universities, right? USC, NYU Stern, right? What do they really look for? And it's just a slight variation of the 3 factors I just said, which is what, right? Intellectual depth, curiosity, leadership, service. Let's go ahead and add some icing to the cake, okay? The first one is instead of intellectual depth, how about this? Intellectual range. If you're a BSMD candidate, right? Think about what every other BSMD candidate has already done. If you're trying to stand out, do you think doing an internship at the local hospital is going to make you stand out? No. Do you think taking that many more APs is going to make you stand out? No. Do you think 1,600 and 4.0 and 200 service hours is going to make you stand out? The answer is no. When it comes to standing out, you got to do something different, or you got to think different, first of all. And I'm teaching you guys how. First is be curious in more than just 1 or 2 categories. How about that? right? If you know that I want to go into, let's say I'm interested in computer science, that doesn't mean that there's no other topics in the rest of the world, right? And let me tell you why. If you look at the top universities, most of them are liberal arts universities. Okay, it's why Penn has a one university policy. It's why Brown, right, has the open curriculum. These are ways for students to explore everything about the world around them, not just to become great engineers, but to be very well-rounded thinkers and problem solvers. So you want to stand out? Stop focusing on your major and take a step aside and start building some curiosity, right, concretely towards another category or two, right? It's perfectly one of my favorite examples. I had an engineering student who's going to EECS Berkeley now, super interested in building robots, but his side passion was actually old film. I'm not kidding. He loved watching old film and analyzing those films, right? Really old film, right? Sound interesting? Yeah, sound interesting? Yeah, it is. And it was enough to get him accepted, despite the fact that he didn't have perfect grades or test scores. Guys, in fact, his numbers were not even that stellar, not even close, right? But he's going to UC Berkeley EECS because he stood out. He did something different. So allow your student, and if you're a student, allow yourself to explore the other avenues beyond your majors. Stop hyper-specializing. This isn't the rest of the world. This is the United States of America. We want well-rounded thinkers. The word liberal arts is based on Latin for libre, which means free. And it's the idea that the more well-rounded your knowledge, the more liberated you become. Okay, so think differently. Intellectual depth and range. Secondly, right, we have service. Okay, now how do we think about service? Or sorry, we have leadership. Instead of just leadership, I want you to think about it this way: innovative leadership. How about that? Several years ago in UC Berkeley admissions, right, I was chatting with another admissions officer, and we were chatting about this, and basically the buzz phrase at the time was innovative leadership. I think it still holds, which is, don't just show me how you've led, but show me how you've led in a different way from everyone else, right? An excellent example of this is, for instance, I have a student who went to Harvard, right? She was going to Irvington High School, right? She did something that just no one else had ever done before, which is she actually just created a carnival. I mean, that's interesting, right? I'm not going to go to the backstory there, but guys, that's innovative. Like, right? To tackle the toxic environment there, she was like, how do I create something that will just kind of get everyone together to just set aside grades in school for a second, but rather just to have a good time, right? I mean, so there's, it's how do you lead, but also in a lead and innovative way, right? Now, you shouldn't become so calculated. You shouldn't think, okay, well, I need to be innovative now. You still want it to be genuine, right? So still line it up with the things that's natural to you in terms of how you want to contribute. But also don't just follow what everyone else is doing. Don't just follow the instructions. Maybe think, if you notice room for improvement, for innovation, then think creatively about it, right? And then do that yourself. So innovative leadership, not just leadership, all right? And the last one is service, and the word is impact. So it's not just service, but impactful service, right? And impact should happen in two ways if you really want it to stand out. Has nothing to do with number of hours. In fact, what I'm about to say can probably happen, I'd say, in about 2 weeks or so, right? How much, right, will your work impact someone else in a lasting way? And how much will it impact you in a lasting way, right? Let me give you an example that a lot of people like to say. They come up and say, Dan, I've done 200 service hours, I'm 300 service hours, right? How do I really show for that, right? It's like, well, let's count how many words that is. 200 service hours, it's 4 words. Yeah, not a whole lot of words, right? So it's not about the number. It's about how much impact wasn't. And I like to think of impact as how lasting will it be. So let me give you a bad example. Let's say you were nothing wrong with it, right? But let's say you were serving food to the homeless. Great act of service, right? But from a purely strategic standpoint, you give food to a homeless person, right? First and foremost, you're not leading it. It's not a form of leadership, because are you convincing someone else to do something that they otherwise wouldn't have? No. And is your impact going to last beyond that day? Probably not. So, okay, and then ready? Lastly, how much of an impact did that have on you? Well, most people who I've ever talked to, not all, didn't really teach them much either, right? So that's what I would call low impact service option, right? But again, impact is two-way. So in a nutshell, when you think about service, don't just think, please stop thinking about the hours, right? If you want to stand out, think about, okay, what options would really put me in a position where I can make a lasting impact and will likely challenge me too, right? And impact me as well, right? These are the key ingredients to really standing out for an application. So let me reiterate, okay? For 99% of universities in the United States, it is what? 1, intellectual depth outside the classroom in any one subject. 2, leadership, right? Actual meaningful leadership where you convince someone to do something that they otherwise wouldn't have done. And 3, you served, right? In a capacity that was for the genuine. It wasn't just, to look good or counting number of hours, right? But if you're trying to stand out for the top 0.5 or 1% or 0.1% of universities in the entire United States, it's 1, intellectual depth and range. Okay, so not just studying the thing and showing interest in your major, but showing things outside of that as well, right? Number 2 is basically, obviously it's innovative leadership. It's not just leading, but how have you done that in a slightly different way, right? So innovative leadership rather than just leadership. And lastly, impactful service rather than service, right? And stop counting hours, right? And the impact should go two-way there. You should make a lasting impact on the person that you're helping, and that person that experience should also have a lasting impact on you, right? And so here's some pro tips before I let you guys go today. 1, stop counting. 2, stop starting artificial clubs to look good. It's a huge waste of your time. And in fact, it probably makes you look a lot worse than it does make you look better. Number 3, I would hesitate if you're really going for the Harvards and Stanfords of the world. I would hesitate with signing up with too many fundraising opportunities, right? Just because I think a fundraising opportunity, though it might be challenging in its own regard, usually you don't get to interact directly with the people that the funds are going to go towards, right? So again, that two-way impact is rather inhibited. And those are some simple pro tips. And I guess my last one is the first one that I said today, if you're still here with me. Be genuine, guys. Stop making stuff up. Stop trying to be something that you're not. Ask yourself, 1, right? What are my greatest interests? How can I go explore them? Ask yourself, 2, right? Who do I think needs help right now in the world? How can I go help them? And I guarantee you, if you just do those 2 things, you will set yourself apart from everyone else. Here's why. Because everyone else is asking the wrong questions. They're asking, 1, what can I do to make myself look better? And number 2, how many hours of service can I accumulate to make myself look better? You guys choose, right? Obviously, if you choose option number 2, you're probably going to be stressed out for the rest of high school and the rest of your life, because if that's the mindset you have, good luck. If you choose option number 1, you'll probably live a very happy and fulfilling life, because you're not only doing the things that naturally interest you, but you're also positively helping other people along the way. So simple. How do you stand out from everyone else? Stop thinking like everyone else and start helping like no one is really doing genuinely. Start learning as opposed to studying. How about that, right? So you have to change the way you see the world, and you have to change the way you see college admissions, to be completely honest with you, because I think it's a very misunderstood topic. But if you found this guys helpful, please share it, because if there's $1 billion question, it's got to be this one, and this, without a doubt, is the answer. How do you execute upon this in your own life or in a personalized way? Reach out to us and we'd be happy to show you the way, right? So I hope everyone here has a safe and happy holiday season. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope you guys are ready to start standing out and being a lot more genuine and true to who you actually are versus what you think the world wants you to be. Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holidays, and enjoy. See you guys next time.